Good afternoon. I'm Leah with Salon TV, and I'm here with Angela Yee, radio host of Power 105's The Breakfast Club, and Tariq Khan, record producer and founder of HighBreedMusic, a platform for emerging artists in New York. Welcome.
Hey, Rachel.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for joining us. So the Grammy nominations are in, and for a second year in a row, hip-hop and R&B dominated in the Academy's 4 general categories, as did women and artists of color. But like most major award shows, the authority of the Grammys has been in question in recent years. The Recording Academy has been forced to confront its overwhelmingly white and male past while trying to stay relevant as a benchmark of musical excellence moving forward. But has it been successful? So let's just dive right into the Grammy results, the Grammy nominations, Drake and Kendrick Lamar led with the most nominations, but Childish Gambino, her, Janelle Monae, Cardi B are just some of the artists that followed closely behind. What were your first impressions?
Well, I think a lot more women have been included. I know they expanded it, so now there's like 8 nominees in the category, so there's a lot more people vying for those spots.
Right.
And after last year, I think this year they were like, okay, we got to make this very inclusive of women. We're going to get Alicia Keys to host.
Right.
We're going to make sure that women are included, and you can see the results of them actually going out and actively trying to make sure that women participate in the process more too.
Do you have any first thoughts?
I think it's being hosted by a woman. It seems like maybe those extra 3 spots, they gave those to women nominees almost. They expanded. It's almost equal across the board now.
But a lot more deserving women too.
Yeah, right,
You know,
right. That's the big thing.
Because a lot of it, we always wonder, like, how does the process even work?
Right.
You know, because that's always been a question, like, how does the whole process of who gets nominated work? So I think just the outreach of trying to make sure different people are included, and it's not the same, like, white male, you know, people dominating who is included and figuring out who the nominees are going to be. I think, you know, they definitely made that effort.
Yeah. Do you guys have any kind of thoughts on who is going to take home some of the big Grammy nominations? Anybody you feel like was left out?
Let me see. Well, Cardi B got a lot of nominations.
She did.
And I'm not sure what exactly she's going to win. She could win for Song of the Year, I feel like.
I like it.
I could see that. Album of the Year, she's a contender for that as well, which
Invasion of
would be huge
Privacy.
for her.
I think that's really based on her debut. And your debut nominated for Album of the Year.
Because really, who had a bigger year than Cardi?
I think she's been cleaning up on all platforms this whole time.
I mean, I feel like at the end of the day, we deserve a Cardi B acceptance speech, no matter which category that is. Like, it has to happen at some point.
I want her to talk about the shutdown and everything.
I know,
and get up there.
That video was incredible last night on Instagram.
But, you know, Drake also. I mean, Drake every year has an incredible year. God's Plan was huge for him.
He's nominated for Song of the Year, yeah.
Yeah, so I could see him in that video and just the whole, like, thought behind it.
There's also Childish Gambino. Talk about a big video song.
I mean, that video now, that might have been one of my favorite videos of the year, you know. But this is not a video award. It's for the music. It's for the song.
It was still a pretty big, you work in radio. It was still a big song.
It was big. But it wasn't as big as, I would say it wasn't as big as, like, God's Plan, you know, for people. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
But
I think it took off really quick, the way that it was shared, that video. But even he was, you know, commenting a little bit that the music came secondary to the content of the
This is America.
Yeah.
One person I was really excited to see nominated so many times so happy was Janelle Monae.
Oh, yeah, I love Janelle Monae. She's performing too.
Is she?
Yeah.
That's
her
great.
performances are like some of the best performances I've ever seen, and just like how she puts everything together. I think Janelle Monae as an artist, as a person, as an actor, as an activist, she's incredible.
Yeah, I'm just so inspired by her. And you know, you see with Janelle Monae, you see with her being nominated so many times, it seems like there's some push where it's not just, you know, Drake you expect, you know, Post Malone, these are artists you turn on the radio and you hear, you know, and they're great, but there was a push, it seemed like, from some kind of less mainstream or less kind of commercial music that we're recognizing this as really great too, which is incredible. I think it's more in line with us as fans.
You feel like there wasn't as much pop music like represented?
You know what I thought was interesting is Taylor Swift was left off of the top 4 categories, and she, notoriously is a Grammy favorite.
She's the darling.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I feel like she's nominated for Album of the Year every time she puts out an album. And this year she's only nominated, I think, one Best Pop album.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if she's upset about that.
Yeah, a lot of people call it a snub. I actually haven't listened to Reputation, but people say it's good.
You don't strike me as a Taylor Swift fan. Are you a Taylor Swift fan?
Not yet.
That's a good answer. Not yet. That's a good answer.
Not yet.
But also Black Panther soundtrack.
Yeah.
You know, for Kendrick, that's huge. Like the fact that he curated that album for that movie, which is such a monumental, like, you know, that's great for us. And so I think just the songs on there and the fact that that was nominated for Album of the Year, right?
Album of the Year, yep.
Yeah, so
that's cool.
And
first time a movie sound. Purple Rain, was that an Album of the Year?
Actually,
when was that happen last?
Okay, so
and
I have
King's
this.
Dead, that's my song. Like I would love for that song to win something.
There's been 3 soundtracks to have won Album of the Year in kind of the last 40 years. Saturday Night Fever, The Bodyguard, and Oh Brother Where Art Thou. So
I don't know the Oh Brother Where Art Thou album, but I do know.
You know The Bodyguard.
I remember that record.
And The Bodyguard.
But it hasn't been, the last Oh Brother Where Art Thou was 2002, so there hasn't been a soundtrack since then. So this would be a really big deal. And Kendrick has lost Album of the Year 3 times.
Damn, is he going to
for
the
Damn,
awards?
River Butterfly,
no pun intended.
for Dance with Butterfly, and Good Kid, Mad City. And I think at least twice because of Taylor Swift, you know, so what is, you know, does this really, he could really possibly win this year, which I'm kind of conflicted about because I love all 3 of those albums that he lost for, and they were like, so, you know, solo projects, kind of, you know, so much of the essence of who he is. But, you know, I think it would
a
be
win is a win.
Yeah.
Win, win, win.
It doesn't matter. So that's a good transition to go into hip hop and the Grammys.
Okay.
Me and Angela, we had this kind of pre-Grammy talk last year, and the focus was hip hop and the Grammys because hip hop has been kind of, you know, historically disrespected and neglected by the Grammys, you know, from the beginning, from when it was first included, but the awards weren't televised. You know, last year Jay-Z was among the most nominated artists and didn't take home a single Grammy. Has the relationship changed, do you think? Is the Grammys doing a better job, and is it enough?
I think we'll see after this, see who wins. Just because you get a bunch of nominations doesn't mean you win, as we've seen so many times in the past. And also, they have expanded the categories, so a lot more people do get nominated. So when we say, oh, this person was nominated 5 times, well, there's also 8 people.
To win. Yeah. I think that's a good point in that it used to be a top 5, and now it's top 8 nominations, which means there is wider representation, but it's never been harder to win now.
Right.
And so does that mean that the voters will be kind of hip hop fans will be split who are voters? Because you're voting, you know, someone who likes Cardi B versus Childish Gambino versus Drake versus Kendrick Lamar.
Or like even if like Drake is
Gaga
on sicko mode with Travis, he's competing against himself in one of the categories.
That's not a bad place to be.
Yeah,
I think all the artists are generally, they're in a similar level of respect among their fan bases. So that's a little different. In the past years, there's been a couple of situations where there was somebody that came out of left field and just like cleaned up, and it was like, whoa, how did that happen?
Right. Is Post Malone a hip hop artist?
I'm not going to name any names.
He doesn't like to say he is, right? That's the last thing I've heard about him.
I mean, I don't know. He's in the hip hop category. He would be in the hip hop category.
He's nominated for
Album of the Year?
Record of the Year.
Is he nominated?
I don't know if he's not nominated.
Oh, yeah, he is. Bear Bonds and Bentley.
Okay, yeah. So he's nominated in the top categories, which he's the only person where I was like, really?
That album did extremely well, though.
Yeah, and Rockstar was obviously a huge record. So will Drake show up this year?
Probably not.
But he did submit Scorpion. He didn't submit More Life last year, which was kind of like a protest on his part. You know, I'm tired of being disrespected.
Didn't he win for Hotline Bling or something?
Yeah, I think he did, but he didn't show up, and he was like, it won a best rap song, but he's like, this is not even a rap song.
Right.
Might have been a rap performance.
But just because he submitted it doesn't mean he's going to show up, because it's been submitted in the past, and he hasn't shown up for the past couple of years.
Right. I'm wondering, though, if as nominated Album of the Year, Song of the Year, and all these big categories, does that make a difference for him?
Does it make a statement to not show up, you think?
There's got to be some reason he's not showing up.
Well, he said, you know, him, Frank Ocean, these artists have said in recent years that, you know, they're tired of being neglected, you know, and just not recognized and not celebrated in the same way that artists of other genres who've kind of put out similar, you know, substantial bodies of work, you know, both those artists are artists that move the culture when they drop.
You should go to BT Awards then.
Yeah, Jada Pinkett had a thing, right? You know,
no one goes to those.
Yeah. I'm curious, you know, Jay-Z, I mean, it was kind of soul crushing to see Jay-Z sitting in that front row at the Grammys last year and just category after category after category, he's just passed over.
So you think he'll go this year? Because him and Beyonce were nominated for one.
Just one. I thought that was kind of
contemporary album?
Urban contemporary, yeah.
Which is kind of an auxiliary category.
Right.
That, you know, they tend to have more progressive artists in there.
Right, and they don't even televise that award, I think.
You think he'll go?
Maybe they will this year.
If Beyonce, Jay-Z wins,
that would be a nice change.
Yeah, that would. Last year they didn't televise any kind of greater R&B awards, which was interesting.
Bad decision because we want to watch. And Alicia Keys is hosting. I don't see how you couldn't do that this year.
Right.
You have traditional R&B performance, and she just like.
Right. Okay, cut the cameras after.
What do you think about Alicia? Are we looking forward to seeing her host?
I was surprised by that choice, but pleasantly happy that it's a woman. A woman hasn't hosted the Grammys in over 10 years. So as we kind of talked about, there's a clear, real push this year to kind of feature women and to, you know, encourage and celebrate the contributions of women in music, which is plentiful. Right. You know, she's on The Voice, and I am not as familiar with that show, but, you know, she's loved on that show.
Like, we're going to see.
Yeah, I think it was right. Yeah. But I will say I enjoyed watching her kind of promo video about hosting the Grammys. I was kind of entertained by that. And, you know, I'm very, you know, I love kind of her, like, no makeup, minimal makeup type of thing. It kind of feels very empowering to me as a woman.
She also runs a huge charity. So maybe this all plays into having a really powerful role model to offset the controversy.
And she's a Grammy type of artist too.
Yeah, she's won a ton of Grammys.
Yeah, so it kind of makes sense. So I guess we'll see. And there's an Aretha tribute this year?
Yep, definitely.
Who's doing that tribute?
I haven't heard, but I'm like, y'all need to do this right.
Who would we want to see do the Aretha tribute?
Oh, wow.
I mean, I feel like Aretha had such like a lineup at her funeral.
Right.
Like, are they just gonna kind of reprise that? Definitely like
Fantasia.
Yeah, Fantasia. I think Jennifer Hudson did it. I would love to see like I don't know if I'll get slack for this, but Jasmine Sullivan. I think she has.
Why would you get slack for that?
I mean, I just think she's kind of underrated. She has a great voice, so I think you know I would love to see her. Jill Scott would be great. I don't know. I think it would be cool also to see how people kind of reimagine her stuff too. You know.
I wonder if Layla's gonna do it because she has a couple nominations.
Right.
She'll be there.
Right. That would be great.
That makes sense. What about Lady Gaga? Would we be mad if she did?
Somebody will.
Well, Ariana Grande did it, and she kind of killed it.
Yeah, Ariana. Yeah, so I don't know.
Okay, so what about, staying on hip-hop, what about, I was pretty excited for the best rap album, right? Nipsey Hussle, Pusha T, Mac Miller, all nominated.
And Mac Miller's parents are going in case he wins the award to accept on his behalf.
So Mac Miller passed away this August, I think, right after he dropped this album, Swimming, which is an incredible album. And Pusha T, Daytona, that was the only album recognized from the whole Wyoming Kanye produced rollout. Kanye is nominated for Producer of the Year, but Ye was completely ignored. Kids See Ghost, Tiana Taylor's album, Nas' album, nothing, just Daytona. What do we think about that?
I mean, first of all, there's 7 songs on all of those albums, right?
Daytona is strong.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah, I think out of all those albums, I mean, of course, Tiana's not going to be nominated for hip-hop album, so that wouldn't even matter. I think his, probably out of all of them, that was the one that made the most noise and that people liked the most. Right.
If it's going to be 7 songs, they all need to hit.
And it's got to be bangers.
Daytona did, I think, from start to finish. You know, there's not any kind of dead space on there at all.
But Nipsey Hussle had a phenomenal album as well.
And he's recognized. And I wrote about kind of the best albums of the year and certainly included Nipsey Hussle. And you know, kind of how great it is that the Grammys are nominated him but it's kind of shocking, and not because he's not deserved, but that they kind of noticed, you know, because they typically don't notice those type of artists. But I think that's pretty significant that he is nominated.
And Cardi B.
Yeah, but Cardi B is up there. I mean, you know,
who do you think is going to win?
For Best Rap Album?
So who's all the nominees for Best Rap Album?
Cardi B, Mac Miller, Nipsey Hussle, Pusha T,
And Travis
Scott.
Travis Scott, I love that album. I think
he's killing it too.
I would love to see Nipsey Hussle win that award, but I also think it would be significant for Mac Miller to win it. You know, this would be the last award Grammy that he could win.
Right.
So, you know, we talked about a little bit how they're expanding the categories from top 5 to top 8, and that's because the Grammys kind of inducted these systematic changes after last year, which includes a task force on diversity and inclusion. They registered a whole new class of voters, much more women, much more people of color. So I think that's really reflected in who was nominated this year.
Aren't we eligible to vote?
I know that
if we wanted to, if we paid our fee.
I mean, there's the
like
Grammy vote. There's the Grammy voting committee, which has classically played such a huge role in making those decisions. And that seemed, you know, it's the idea is that it's their peers who are helping, you know, vet these artists, not only the public and not only the executives, but I feel like those Grammy voting committees have been for a lot of the more well-informed artists, the more entrepreneurial artists who decide to get involved, and it's not necessarily as representative as it could be because it's, you know, the artists kind of have to find out for themselves that that's a thing, that they should be, you know, getting involved. And a lot of the time it's the people who are older, the people who are, you know, being told by the managers to get involved, or the managers
dues every year.
Right. And I think that's a good point, because you see kind of these fully launched kind of Oscar campaign. Lady Gaga's full in that, launching this Oscars campaign, you know, to get Stars Born, or Roma, or Green, you know, these movies. You can see these like fully formulated like Oscars campaigns, and it's like, are artists doing the same thing? And is that a kind of requirement? You clearly need some resources behind you to do something like that. And so typically underground or unsigned artists wouldn't really have those resources to do so.
Do you feel like the Grammys means as much as it used to?
Well, that's the last question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just
you like
kidding.
peeking on a page.
I wasn't. I didn't.
No, we should go there, because that's a great question, because the viewership. So as the Grammys, I think it's a good thing. It's becoming more representative of the artists that I love, that we love, that we celebrate. The viewership has been declining for 9 years in a row. Last year was a 9-year low.
Sheesh.
What does that mean? I mean, I think, you know, and to be clear, award shows from the Oscars, the Golden Globes, to the Grammys, they're all
been declining.
Yeah, they're all in decline, which I think speaks to also a lot of people don't have cable anymore. They don't watch kind of award show. You know, we
and
stream
people also
everything.
watch like snippets. Like, I don't gotta watch it when it's on, because I'm gonna see all the important parts on social media.
Right, they're super long, but I think part of the Grammys' relevance, and the same thing as I talked about in the intro, the kind of relevance in the award shows is like, we are tired of only white men being kind of nominated, you know what I'm saying, or only being celebrated. And, you know, you see artists like Drake and Frank Ocean, like, I'm not gonna participate, you know? So it is a question, and are these kind of systematic changes, as I was speaking about, you know, Cardi B and Album of the Year and all these things like Nipsey Hussle, is that enough? Is it a little too late? You know what I'm saying? Is the hip hop community already kind of like off the Grammys?
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, you know what? I think anything can be repaired, right? So, and clearly they're like making this huge effort. You know, what's going to matter is who is going to walk away with these awards, because again, like we said, just because you got nominated,
and we see that, and you see that kind of a pattern of that. Like, okay, people get really excited for the nominations, but then it's kind of the same person, you know, winning every time.
I think there's entire categories that, you know, as we had touched on a little earlier today, there's really only 3 or 4 categories that are highlighted, but the majority of the awards won at the Grammys are not televised.
Right.
So there's a huge portion of like creative genius and talent that doesn't get really much of a boost from winning a Grammy because
we didn't see it.
They didn't see it. They're doing big things. There's
right.
hundreds of artists that are
it's nice to put
killing
on your
the
resume.
Game.
Yeah,
that's pretty much the
Grammy
only place somebody's going to see it. They might get a certificate
and that's true.
in
There's
the mail.
all these categories, right, that we don't see, we don't really talk about.
That are a huge part of like the American songbook and tradition, but because they're not fashion-oriented artists in general. That's how I would define it. But they're real musical talent. They're just not. They're not being put on that. So some people might find it, on the internet you can find them accepting those awards.
Right.
One thing the Grammys always does do for me though is make me look at categories outside of R&B and hip hop. And when I watch the performances, I'm like, oh, sometimes I am like, who's that? Let me Google that.
Right.
Or
that's good.
Yeah. So that is part of what it does do for you because clearly it boosts people's sales. Like after the Grammys when they perform, you can see what that means for their streaming numbers and for their sales. So I understand the importance of that to people. And look, I'll say this, like for some people, winning a Grammy is a big deal to them. And for some people, it's not.
Yeah. Right, and I think the Grammys wants it certainly to be the former. They want to stay relevant. They want to stay kind of that musical benchmark. But speaking of, that's a good distinction to make between the awards that are televised and not, because last year, the Grammys gender problem, as far as just one woman, Alicia Keys, won a televised major award for Best
That's the only woman we saw win.
But so there is something to be said, even though there is all these awards we don't see, there is something to be said for the representation that we do see and kind of the problems within that. And that kind of sparked this whole Grammy So Male. And then after the show, as if it wasn't bad enough, the Recording Academy president said, well, women need to step it up if they want to win more awards.
What a dumb thing to say.
And I found this report that was published last year, and it found that of the 899 people nominated in the last 6 Grammy Awards, just 9% were women.
Wow.
So
it's for people who don't think we still have an issue.
Right. And, but this year, obviously, we talked about Alicia Keys hosting. She's replacing James Corden. Her, Cardi B, Chloe and Halle, Janelle Monae. There's reporting lots of female performances.
Opening up for submission, because now independent artists can, for their submission to be nominated, they can enlist just the votes of the general public to help them, qualify or have at least a fighting chance. Whereas before, that wasn't a thing. That's brand new.
Right.
So all these independent artists were pushing.
Right. They're clearly trying to do a big push to save face. Yeah. I'm curious if what you guys think about is kind of what the Recording Academy president said last year and kind of that notorious display of just one woman winning an award. Is that connected to the industry, the music industry, being kind of reluctant to embrace the Me Too movement and Time's Up and these things that you see having a real presence and a real effect in Hollywood or other industries, but music has been really reluctant. We just had a 6-hour R. Kelly documentary after 30 years of allegations, and people people now are just like, okay, I'm done with him. I'm done with him. But it's like, is that the standard? 30 years of allegations in a 6-hour documentary like that?
It just shows how little power women have, and how people will overlook things if they feel like you're talented and they like your music or they like you as an artist. They'll just be like, oh, I just turned a blind eye to that. And people used to think that you could separate somebody's acts as a person from
the art from the artist.
Their art. So can you separate the art and the artist? And people say yes, but I say I can't listen to R. Kelly's music and not think about who he's singing to and the things that he's done and the lives that he's destroyed.
Right. I hope that, this year the Grammys kind of trying to address their gender problem will kind of ripple throughout the music industry because it needs a wake-up call, I think.
Yeah, we're slower than everything else that's been happening, I feel like.
The music industry is definitely, I think, more disproportionate than the film industry. I mean, it's
male-dominated,
it's like 95% male-dominated.
Right.
You don't think the film industry is pretty bad too, though?
Yeah.
I would say.
There's a lot. I think there's a lot more actresses than singers. For every
the
female
Oscars had a
singer.
problem too. Even if you see how much male lead actors get as opposed to female lead actors,
Right,
there's a big disparity in that too. You know,
but that's why men need to be taking this up and not just women.
I think this year is just the beginning of everything has no choice but to get flipped on its head.
I think that's exciting. So before we end, will you be tuning into the Grammys?
Well, you know, I do a morning show, so I feel like I have to.
Right.
Because, you know, it is the kind of thing that I want to make sure I'm watching it so that if someone else isn't watching it, I can get up in the morning and be like, you missed this.
Right.
Or this is what happened last night. So, yes, I will be watching. And, yes, I want to see how Alicia Keys does as a host. I want to see how Kendrick Lamar does. I want to see if Drake wins. I want to see Janelle Monae win. I want to see Cardi B perform. I want to see her win. So I will be watching. I want to see her win. And there's one song in particular, Best Part, her and Daniel Caesar. That is my song.
Yeah,
so I hope that wins. I know it got nominated. I forget what category it's in.
Yeah.
But I hope that song wins because I listen to that song like every day.
Tariq, are you tuning in?
I'm going to tune in online so I could see as much of a breadth
I'm not
of
giving
it.
him no numbers.
Yeah. I'm gonna
No viewership.
I'm gonna check out the different categories. I enjoy the the production side of it.
Right.
Just everybody who's involved behind the scenes and seeing them get some celebration and their due.
Right.
And the support systems, and that obscure music that I might not have found out about.
Right.
So.
And I do want to make
This
sure we
music
support,
I've heard of.
just because Alicia Keys is hosting, like let's show, since a woman hasn't hosted in almost 15 years, since Queen Latifah,
Right.
like let's show up and give her some numbers so that they'll realize how.
I'll tune in.
There
I'll
you
leave
go.
I'll leave the TV on.
Yes.
And I'll walk out and get a sandwich.
Well, I think regardless, it feels like it's optimistic. There's a lot to look forward to, between the nominations, between the performances, and we'll just have to wait and see.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and we're out.